Sloppy.
Hello everyone, this is Travis with House of Gaming, and today we are going to be discussing the W Cross Hotbar system introduced in Final Fantasy XIV about 2 years ago, just before Stormblood came out. Hard to believe it's been 2 years since that first tutorial here, but it's got a lot of problems, and we are going to fix those today. First, it's going to be a lot easier to hear me. The audio is not going to be too high. There's not going to be as much rambling, which I'm already failing at, but hear me out. And we are going to make things much more clear. We're going to do it a little more slowly than we did before, and we're going to go over each individual aspect of it. Now, I am playing on PC, but this guide is primarily going to be for controller users, both on the PS4 and the PC. Mouse and keyboard is not required. All of this can be done with a controller, but I will be using the mouse pointer to just kind of go over what's going on in a few instances. So, first, we're going to go ahead and look at the finished product here. We have 16 extra hotbar options up here. And by the end, we're going to have another full 16 that we can access as well. And we're going to go over how to do all of that today. So first, let's have a quick cut, and we're going to go ahead and set everything to default so that you can see what you're going to be starting out with. Alright, so here we are. This is primarily going to be as close to default as I can get it, but this should look pretty similar to what you're probably starting out with. So we have just our regular filled hotbar, completely full. We're level 70. We are out of room, and it's a problem. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press Start, or excuse me, Options, as they call it now. And we're going to go over to System, and we're going to go to Character Configuration. Now, you'll probably start up at the top of this little side tab here. Going to work our way down to Hotbar Settings, the two little crosses here. By default, you're probably going to start over here on Display. Press R1 or L1 to get to the proper tab. We're going to skip Display, skip Sharing, and go to Cross. Now, up here, the first few options are all going to be just the stuff that you already have. This does have to do with... This can be related, but I go ahead and just leave it alone, leave it on 0 in most cases. Now, by default, it's probably already like this, but on cross hotbar controls, you absolutely must use hold. Toggle and mixed will not work. Next, another default here, D-pad plus buttons, or buttons plus buttons. Personal preference, most people are going to be using this first default option. Now this is where our second hotbar comes from. Now first, got to fill in Always Display. You always want to leave this option, Return to Cross Hotbar, after W Cross Hotbar input. Otherwise, you'll use your skill on the W hotbar, and immediately the controller is going to go back to your regular hotbar. That's probably not going to do anything but mess you up, so I do recommend leaving that blank. And this option is funny. It has no reason to really exist. All this does is it allows for you to go into the HUD or heads-up display options later and move the W section of the hotbar separately. Why that's a separate option and a separate menu, I have no idea, but it's a thing. And last on this page is the W Cross Hotbar input timer. I've messed around with it quite a bit, and I'd say for most people, 25 is going to be comfortable. Much higher than that, and you're not going to be able to double tap your trigger fast enough. Too slow, and it's going to be hard to even get the timing right at all when you're actually running around in dungeons. So I would say give 25 a try, but then from there, just adjust as you see fit. So we are done with this page. We can either go down to apply, or do what everyone else does and hit triangle. And we are done with this page. Next, we're going to hit R1 and go over to Custom. And here's where the rest of our settings are located. Now, while this isn't necessary for the W cross hotbar, I do recommend as you pass by going ahead and clicking Enable Expanded Controls with L2 plus R2. That essentially is going to mean you hold L2 and then hold R2 whilst already holding L2 to get 1/2 of a hotbar, and then do the reverse, R2 followed by L2 and holding them both together, and you can access a specific hotbar. I used 8. It's the last hotbar, and it's good for just little things like sprint and things you don't use super often. But this is what you came here for. We're going to head down to Enable W cross hotbar with simultaneous L2 and R2 double tap. A long way of saying turn it on. Now you'll notice when we started this video there were 16 extra buttons at the top here. You may notice there's only 8 right now. And that is the default setting for some reason. To get the rest, you have to go down and enable directional buttons. Otherwise, it is not going to work. Now, this part is very important, as this is going to determine where your W cross hotbar is pulling from. It's not a separate hotbar by itself. It actually is just a mirror image of one of your already existing ones. For this video, I'm going to go ahead and use hotbar 3, so I can kind of show you what it looks like getting stuff put on it. You're welcome to use any combination you want. You just want to make absolutely sure here that you are selecting the right ones here, because it does allow you to invert the right and left, or you could even have part of hotbar 2 and part of hotbar 3 if you wanted to. But I would recommend just doing the left and right sides of one particular hotbar so you know what you're doing. And that ultimately is going to be everything on this page. We are going to hit apply or triangle to save our settings, and we're going to back out. So now we've got our blank W cross hotbar here, and the first thing you might want to do is, by default, it's not very straight. You may want to condense it a little bit and make it look a little prettier. You may recall at an earlier point I had mentioned going into the HUD settings. So you can pull that up and go down, 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 and here we are, left W crossbar, right W crossbar. You select either one, and it will highlight on the screen. If you're using a controller, you're going to use your right stick to adjust it. If you're using mouse, keyboard, touchpad, moving it around that way, you can grab it with your little hand and move it that way too if you wanted to, for any reason. I like to have them a little bit over here so it just kind of looks nice. It's got a little line there you can actually see, and lining that up I find looks pretty nice. Want to make sure once you're done with any HUD setting changes, though, you do have to go and hit save. Now, filling out that hotbar, we are going to pause, go to Actions and Traits, and from there, here's all of our Dark Knight skills. You don't need to know anything about what they necessarily are. Just go according to your job and what you think you're going to need. Now, first thing you'll notice is when selecting skills. Let's take, say, this one from over here, Salted Earth. You'll want to select it. You will want to press square, and this will give you the option, to say where you want to put it. But you'll see you can't get it to, you can't switch over to your W hotbar when it's like this. And that's because, like I said earlier, it's really just a mirror. So in this case, we're going to cycle through we're going to exit out, cycle through our hotbars until we're on the right one. You'll recall in this case, we selected hotbar 3. So we'll navigate to that, go back into our actions, select the one that we want, and go to square. And now you want to just remember how everything's positioned, and we're going to place it on a button. There it is. It appeared on both. Like I mentioned earlier, this is all just a mirror image of hotbar number 3 now, so anything you put there is all going to be accessible through that cross hotbar. So let's go ahead and see that in action real quick. We're going to go back to hotbar 1, and there's all of our regular skills that you already had. And now we are going to double tap just very quickly. And it jumps up to the other hotbar, and from there we can start using these skills just like we would anything else on our regular hotbar. And in the end, that ultimately is all there is to it. Do remember the last thing here, I did promise you 3 hotbars. I had brought up hotbar 8 a while back. So here's my hotbar 8. I've got, on the left side, I've got my sprint, some emotes, some stances, stuff like that on the right side. So here we are back on hotbar 1. We are going to hold L2, and we're going to hold R1, and that's going to pull up the right side of hotbar 8. If we do the opposite, hold R2, then hold L2, one after the other, not double tapping, not very quickly, you're going to have access to the other side of that bar. And that is ultimately everything for this tutorial. You should be able to get everything all set up. Bear in mind you don't have to do everything exactly the same as was laid out here, but if you do have any questions about any particular portion of setting this up, or there's something that wasn't entirely clear to you, do let me know in the comments, and I will be checking this video regularly and helping anyone out with getting this set up. It may look and sound clunky, but once you learn how to use it, you are going to be able to do so many things so quickly that you're never going to be able to go back. But as for now, I just want to thank you very much for your time and for checking out House of Gaming, and I will see you all next time.
You must recover all the energy immediately, Mega Man. When we find that meteor, we'll find Dr. Wily.